Hi, everybody, and welcome to a new week of learning and assignments. We are now in what I officially call Unit 2. Unit 2 consists of looking at how three philosophers approach moral life. That's going to be Jeremy Bentham, um, Immanuel Kant, and Aristotle. As we are looking at how these three philosophers approach moral life, we are going to see what they have in terms or offer or where they start from in their theories with respect to something called metaphysical presuppositions. So you'll be learning about those in some video lectures. These metaphysical presuppositions serving as a kind of foundation for any rules, principles, or values and methods they present. Rules, principles, values, and methods they think we should use in making decisions of moral significance. So you just heard me say metaphysical presupposition. So presupposition is something that you believe to be true, something that you believe to be true as you start to formulate or offer or present or develop other beliefs. Metaphysical. So metaphysical is an adjective used to describe something that is of concern to metaphysicians who are focused on metaphysics. And you were introduced to the branch of metaphysics during chapter 1. So if you don't remember what that branch is about in philosophy, go ahead and reread that little section or explanation in chapter 1. If nothing else, remember that metaphysics as a branch of philosophy is concerned with reality primarily. There are linkages between the various branches. So, for example, your metaphysical belief system might entail that the word God refers to something real. So that's a metaphysical presupposition in your moral compass. If that's the case, then your metaphysical presupposition about reality, that there is truly a supernatural being that is a true reference and not just a figment of the imagination that exists independently, may very well be tied to an epistemological presupposition. So in chapter 1, you were introduced to the branch of philosophy called epistemology. So let's just say you do have the metaphysical presupposition in this class that God refers to something real. And because of that, you have an epistemological presupposition or assumption that we can have moral knowledge, and that's connected to the metaphysical presupposition that God, as a truly existing being, has truly existing causal powers that can convey knowledge to human beings. And because it is conveyed through maybe some kind of divine modality through God, that the knowledge we get, say, from the Ten Commandments or the Bible is reliable knowledge that we really can use. It's a reliable source of information, i.e. the Bible. So I'm just showing you how your metaphysical and epistemological presuppositions can connect, even if you don't believe that the word God has a referent that's truly existing outside of our imagination, you still have metaphysical presuppositions that connect to epistemological presuppositions. So remember, if nothing else, epistemology it's a branch of philosophy that focuses on knowledge. Okay, now, how does this connect to your ethical presuppositions? Well, continuing with my example, if you believe, because of your metaphysical and epistemological presuppositions, that the Bible or the Ten Commandments are a reliable source of information, present truth and hence knowledge, then you may believe that you can have moral knowledge. You may believe that when we need to decide what is right or wrong, to know what is right or wrong, that we can go to the Bible or the Ten Commandments. So the commandment that says thou shalt not kill, you might say that is moral, that counts as moral knowledge. It's a statement that aligns with reality, right? So then here's a connection to where your commitment to a general moral principle. So remember, I had the lecture, you followed a lecture on moral statements, non-moral statements. All of the Ten Commandments are moral statements. They're in the form of what would be called categorical imperatives by many philosophers, including Kant. So thou shalt not kill is really a moral statement when you interpret it in context. It's really when you say thou shalt not kill in the context of the Ten Commandments, it's saying it would be wrong to kill, right? You ought not to kill is the real meaning of thou shalt not kill. It would be wrong to kill. So even though there's no moral language in that particular statement, most philosophers and theologians would agree that it is a kind of moral command, if you will, when we read it in context. So there we have a nice little connection of how your metaphysical, epistemological, and moral beliefs can connect. You believe the word God has a referent, that's a metaphysical presupposition, which leads you to your epistemological presupposition that the Bible and Ten Commandments are reliable and true sources of knowledge because of their relationship as effects from God as the cause of those effects, of those pieces of information or instances of information and claims about reality. being created by this divine, perfect, omniscient being, and then hence the moral belief that you might have as someone who believes the word God exists. The word God has a reference, and in the Bible that killing is wrong. Thou shalt not kill, therefore killing is wrong. There's your moral belief. So that's just an example of how it all connects. So that said, as we work through Unit 2, I'm going to be helping you to see, or what I want you to see is, or try to understand is, what does it mean to do moral theory in normative ethics? So not only have you learned about metaphysics, and epistemology, and logic as branches of philosophy, but I'm trying to stress that these metaphysical and epistemological that there are epistemological metaphysical presuppositions at play in your moral compass. And you learned about those branches of philosophy, but you also learned that within ethics there are fields. So you have the meta-ethics, you have the applied ethics, you have the normative ethics. What we're really focusing on is normative ethics during 2, but that is going to require us to pay attention to the metaphysical, epistemological, and meta-ethical presuppositions in the normative theories that the philosophers come up with. Now, to end this video, I just want to touch base with you on a tweak that I made with respect to week 7. So let me go ahead and see if I can find where I have that. Somehow, oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to turn the video around. All right, so here, I'm in the week 7 folder, and I did make a slight tweak. Please read this on your own. So I'm going to let you read this on your own before you ask me any questions or make any comments to me about the fact that there's now a task 3 in week 7. I'd very much like for you to read this. What I want to do now is just take a couple minutes to tell you about the logic of these steps. Don't forget about my mega strategies with respect to how do you know you've actually completed everything. I went over that in the item 12 video, so you should know what your reliable source is for making sure that you get everything done. You should know how adaptive learning works at this point, so I'm not going to repeat that. But let me just say a few things about this. So you're going to start with applying all that you've learned about analyzing and clarifying arguments to your item 3 response. So you'll get more information about that. So you're going to clarify your own argument. The only thing you're not going to do, that you're not going to apply during task 1 of week 7, is you're not going to tell me which of your statements in your item 3 response are moral statements or non-moral statements. You're going to do that because the scenario I gave you to respond to for this item 3 response for your first argument very much is aligned with what you're going to be reading in your ebook. So we're going to get to an ebook reading, and the ebook is going to start with an ethical dilemma or scenario where a choice must be made, but no matter what the choice is, it seems like there's some kind of negative consequences, and so then it seems like one is forced to think about, well, what's the best balance of good over bad consequences for 2 possible courses of action? And that's basically what I tried to set up when I had you respond to item 3 in the week 2 mandatory assignment, but I came up with an ethical dilemma or scenario that drew from real life, the current situation of, the COVID pandemic, and also, the fact that we had so many protests following the killing of George Floyd and afterwards. So I think that as you're doing the reading here in task 2 and looking at some of the ethical dilemmas that the author uses to introduce you to utilitarianism and to show you what it looks like to apply it, you're going to better appreciate the scenario I gave you about the line of protesters blocking a truck that has a cure for COVID-19, not the vaccine, but the cure. And so, like I said at the beginning of the semester, there's a logic to why I made it mandatory for you to do week 2. And one reason is that I wanted you to see direct connections between your original thoughts and thinking and what you're learning about. So in virtue of doing the reading on utilitarianism, you're going to be able to evaluate and criticize your original response. You're going to be able to say what is good about your response with in terms of utilitarianism. How might utilitarian praise your item 3 response to that scenario? How might utilitarian critique you? Okay, so that said, this is going to be so this part right here does have videos and showing you how to do argument clarification online. So you're going to spend about an hour and a half following the videos and doing as I instruct you to do for task 1. For this part right here, the reading is only 4 pages, and I think there's only 6 items in a form that you fill out based on the reading. So this is going to take you about an hour if you work slowly and carefully through it. So that's about 2.5 hours right there. And of course, I try to make this class so that you spend no more than 5 to 7 hours on it a week. The education literature says that if you're taking a real class, like a legitimate online class that is actually into teaching and learning and thinking deeply and teaching communication thinking skills, that the minimum should really be 9 to 20 hours. But because it's the pandemic and all this other stuff is going on, I'm trying to limit the time you spend on a weekly basis to 5 to 7 hours for everything. Okay, so here we have this tweak that I did. So read about this tweak on your own. You might want to stop the video and make sure you've read through everything. But this is going to be kind of this is a kind of application. You're not applying the theory to the scenario. What you're doing is you're evaluating your item 3 response from the perspective of what utilitarian thinks is important in making decisions of moral significance. And you're going to learn more about that here. So this is going to take you, by the time you go through the videos and write your response, this will take you another 2 to 2.5 hours. So I'm just giving you a heads up on the timing. There's definitely a logic to this. This gets you primed, it gets your mind ready with something you're already familiar with. You're applying what you've learned. As you read this, you're going to better appreciate why I had you respond to what you responded to here, what you're working with here. You're going to see that arguments are presented. You'll see some arguments in this reading. And then based on what you read here, the general ideas you get about utilitarianism, your basic introduction, you'll be able to follow some lectures that I present where I get more into some particular aspects of the theory, where I go deep into not all of what you learned here, but some really basic things that I really want you to focus on when you evaluate your item 3 response based on the lectures that I do, based on the reading that I do. So that's what's up with that, and I hope you enjoy this change of pace. Keep in mind that the lectures here, you are expected to take notes and learn from them and use them, but you do not submit them from a grade. You will not, from now on, it's very unlikely that if I post a lecture, you submit notes on the lecture. The lectures are there, you're to use them, but you don't get graded for them. You get graded for showing me that you've used them and that you understand something based on the lecture I presented only.